Hello, I'm Manoush Samarodi with World Risk and Insurance News. In this program, the latest on Greek debt, record joblessness in Europe, but optimism in the insurance industry, a financial report on the insurance sector, plus a look at the controversial U.S. Affordable Care Act and high-level changes at Hiscox. You're watching World Risk and Insurance News on WIN TV. First, the news. Moody's downgraded Greece's currency bond ratings to C from CA. S&P had already downgraded Greek sovereign debt to selective default, while Fitch had lowered its rating to C from CCC. In a controversial ruling, the International Swaps and Derivatives Association said that the recent Greek debt restructuring had not triggered a credit event and would therefore not result in payouts on default insurance. The ISDA did say the situation could change as further facts come to light. Now a closer look at the financial markets with Brian Scott Smith at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square.
Manoush, thank you. Unemployment figures in the EU continue to disappoint. However, Eurozone finance ministers have agreed to provide Greece with financial assistance once the country's planned bond swap is complete. That bailout deal is expected to be finalised this week, and that news, of course, was positive. Let's take a look at the numbers now. The Euro Stoxx 50, DAX and FTSE 100 all ended the week slightly higher on strengthening US economic data. Milestones were reached, with the Dow hitting 13,000, the S&P breaking the 1370 barrier, and Nasdaq over 3,000 for the first time since 2000, all before retreating slightly before the week's end. Now let's check in on the insurance industry. AM Best's regional insurance indices were up slightly, though a look at the sector indices reveals non-life shares down 14 for the week, while the AM Best Global Life Index was up 14 points. In other financial news, Goldman Sachs said it was buying Ariel Re's Bermuda-based insurance and reinsurance operations. That deal is expected to close on April the 1st. HSBC is reportedly selling its Hang Seng insurance operation in Hong Kong, as well as operations in Argentina, to QBE. And HSBC is also looking to sell the rest of its Asia insurance businesses to AXA. And Insurance Australia Group said its acquisition of New Zealand's AMI Insurance is moving ahead. If the deal is approved by the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, the Australian insurer will take over AMI's insurance business, distribution and operations, with net assets of 120 million New Zealand dollars. That's all from me. Back to you, Manoush.
Thanks, Brian. According to Eurostat, the unemployment rate in the EU hit 10.7% in January. That's the worst level since the euro was introduced in 1999. The countries with the lowest rates of unemployment: Austria, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The worst rates: Spain at about 23% and Greece at nearly 20%. Joblessness among the young is even worse. In Greece, unemployment among those under 25 years old is 48%. In Spain, nearly 50%. In January, the results of our WIN TV poll about hiring were released. Only 36% of you thought your firm was planning to hire in 2012, while 48% didn't think so. But according to an insurance labor market study by the Jacobson Group and Ward Group, there are encouraging signs for the insurance industry. The study says 50% of all companies do plan to increase staff during the next 12 months. That's the greatest percentage of companies expecting to increase staff in the history of the study. Now, more of our interview with constitutional professor Jason Mazzone from Brooklyn Law School. In this edition of Legislative Brief, Professor Mazzone discusses the controversy over the Affordable Care Act.
When the Affordable Care Act was first passed and signed into law, some people asked Nancy Pelosi where Congress got power from to require Americans to purchase health insurance. And her response was, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding?" As though it wasn't an answer that required any sort of serious analysis or discussion. Most of the people I associate with in the academy, most constitutional law professors, took the same view, have for a long time thought that this was perfectly appropriate for Congress to do. And Congress's theory for regulating in this area is that health insurance and health care large national markets. They involve certainly commercial activity, and it's commercial activity that is on a national scale, and so is therefore commerce among the states. So the opponents, and we now have states who are opposing this, as well as individuals and companies that are opposing it, saying that what Congress is trying to regulate is essentially non-commerce, a decision not to engage in commerce. And so I think the story here has been one of surprises in the sense that we now have an intermediate court of appeals that has held invalid this provision of the Affordable Care Act, and we now have this as a serious constitutional challenge before the U.S. Supreme Court.
For more of our interview with Professor Mazzone on the Affordable Care Act, visit the RIN TV On Demand library. Now finally, people in the news. After 47 years at the second largest Lloyd's insurer, Robert Hiscox has announced that he will step down as chairman of Hiscox in 2013. Mr. Hiscox led the firm since his father died in 1970. The insurer is searching for a replacement. Well, that's our program. Thanks so much to you and all our viewers, now in more than 80 countries. I'm Manusha Marodi reporting from New York. Join us next time for more world risk and insurance news on RIN TV.